Now that the mood has been set up with that opening song of Kara no Kyoukai Movie 3, Remaining Sense of Pain, let's begin this review. So, this movie, I honestly cannot believe how much sense this movie makes. Like, the first movie I watched, part 1, if I would not have seen that movie and seen the foreshadowing technically from that movie take place in this movie, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed this movie a lot. I probably wouldn't have. And I can actually say I appreciate this movie because of seeing the first movie. There was a lot of foreshadowing from the first movie to this point. Now, like I said in my first review, the order of the movie, like the order of the series, are completely out of whack. It's like, Haruhi all over again. And so, technically, even though the first movie is titled Part 1, it's technically like the final movie in the series, as I have been told. And so, technically, if you wanted to watch this in the correct order, you would not have been able to actually see that first movie. But I really have to say that Ufotable that actually ordered these movies, they did a damn good job with the way they handled it. Because this movie, just overall, it says a lot of different things that have just so much underlying meaning. Like, there's so much meaning in this movie that you could actually miss. Like, it is so easy to miss the development and characterization of characters in this movie. Like, it is so easy. And that is one thing I could see about this series. Like, when it comes to Kara no Kyoukai or the Garden of Sinners, it is really easy to lose track of what is really going on in the series. Like, I mean, you just look at the surface of the plot and characters, but you don't really go in depth with the actual characters and actually see the beauty of the series. After looking at this episode, when I first watched it, I was first looking at it and just glancing over it, I at first thought that when Shiki said that she was actually very similar, but she was kind of the opposite of Fujino, at first I thought it was because she was murdering people. Like how we had Shiki in the last movie, part 2, Shiki was going around killing people, a certain set of people, and she was murdering them. Well, in this movie, we found out that Fujino is actually doing the exact same thing, and they're technically a bird from the same feather, as Shiki states twice in this movie. And at first glance, the only differences I saw between them, to be honest, when I first glanced at it, was that Fujino is actually killing people, and then she's enjoying killing people, and she's going into a massacre. She's just killing people for fun. And then you have the other side of the coin with Shiki, to where she was killing people because of murdering, but she wasn't killing people to have fun. But at the exact same time, she actually understood the weight of life itself. That's exactly how Shiki was in the way she explained it in this movie. And that, at first glance, I thought that was the exact opposites of these two. I didn't actually realize until looking at the scenes again, until I actually realized the true meaning behind this movie. In the first movie, part 1, I remember the conversation. I don't know it exactly word for word. I can't, quote it word for word. But I do remember most of the conversation. The detective girl that was making Shiki her arm, she states that Shiki is like a lifeless doll. And like, Kokuto actually goes after lifeless dolls. And, he goes after flawed people, pretty much. And we do know Shiki is flawed, and Fujino is also flawed as a human being, too, in this movie. It's incredibly obvious. And the thing is, Shiki was a person that had 2 souls in one body. And if you look closely in this movie, Fujino was 1 soul with 2 bodies. And that right there, that is the true meaning of opposites and the real meaning behind this movie. At first glance, like I said, it seemed like it was about the murders. But if you dive into it, you find out that what Shiki truly meant when they were the opposites was that one has 2 souls, 1 body, one has 1 soul, 2 bodies. So right there, that just, it becomes incredibly obvious when you start thinking about it like that, because in this movie, technically Fujino, she was very similar to Shiki, but at the exact same time, she had 2 bodies. Like, her bodies would change randomly. Like, she at one point was very insensitive to pain, like she couldn't feel pain, and then one time she could feel pain. She would go back and forth between her body, and eventually led to her downfall with, her illness that was, inside of her. So overall, that entire meaning behind those entire, like, meanings behind the two characters, it's incredibly shocking. Like I said, you could easily miss this development in the meaning behind these two characters and the meaning behind this movie if you just glance at it as a standard episode or movie. And that right there is something I do need to talk about. Kara no Kyoukai is a series I honestly could not recommend to someone that just wants to have a fun watch, like just to sit down and enjoy the ride. Honestly, you really have to put on your thinking cap when you watch this series because there's so much meaning behind these sentences and words and dialogue that is used in this series, and it's incredibly insane when you start thinking about the dialogue. And there's other things too that also represents the exact reverse and opposites of Shiki and Fujino in this movie. Fujino, her family technically hated her ability, and she had this like treatment forced on top of her, which eventually led to her kind of forgetting she had pain. And at the exact same time, it had it to where her father wanted to suppress her powers. But in that entire event, it caused it to where her powers grew stronger. And the exact opposite is for Shiki. Shiki was a part of a family that was wanting her powers to grow. They would guard her and want her powers to grow to take on the family name. That was incredibly obvious with the last movie. So seeing these different similarities but actual opposites of these two characters, this is what you can also get. Besides the two opposites, Fujino is actually represented as the reflection of Shiki herself. For instance, Fujino is used to actually show development of Shiki. For instance, when you start finding out about Fujino in this movie, you're actually finding out about Shiki. And that right there, I was like, damn. When you start thinking about it, it's crazy. The way the storytelling is perceived through this series through another character, I like that a lot. I really like how Fujino was used to actually reflect Shiki. Because even though they were opposites, if you think about the opposites, Shiki is kind of the exact opposite, but also similar. And they also kind of had similar backstories and backgrounds. So, I love that. And then there's other things, too, that you could also think about, okay? Like how Shiki, she could give a rat's ass about her body. Like, she was charging into Fujino at the end of this movie, and she sacrificed her arm and hand without caring. She just gave it up. But you had it to where Fujino, she was bound by her body, her two bodies. She was bound and couldn't give it up. Her body controlled her soul. But Shiki makes it painfully obvious in this movie that she controls her body, not her body controls her. So, once again, I love that. I fucking love that. I really do. So, one thing, though, I will say about this movie, what I really, really like was the overall contrast of the abilities and the way the characterization of the series is. Like, I think that is the one main shining point about Kara no Kyoukai. It is the characters. The characters are exactly what makes this series shine. If you don't really try to look into the characters and understand the motives, themes, their, ideologies and stuff like that, most likely this movie series will be shit. Honestly, it would be shit to the average watcher. It most likely would. But if you actually look at the characters and look at the characterization and the personalities and stuff, you can really appreciate Garden of Sinners for what it truly is. And that is my take and my viewpoint on this movie. It was a really good movie to showcase Shiki's development and show you these little different connections between the characters and show you once again exactly how different Shiki and Kokuto and even Fujino are different. Now, my overall in-game question I want to know is like, exactly when does this detective girl pop up? Like that girl, the redhead girl that's in the office? I really want to know how she got connected with Kokuto and Shiki. I want to know that so bad. Hopefully, I will find that out very soon. Now, one thing though, before I end this actual review up, I do want to talk about a couple of things. The movie starts off with a rape scene, and that is, wow, what a way to start the movie. Like, that definitely just, starts the theme and vibes you should get from this movie. Like, it's a very dark movie, and Kara no Kyoukai does not try to hide this at all. It really just goes out of its way to show you the creepy atmosphere of this series. It's been doing it for the past two movies. It did it in the third movie, especially with the rape scene right at the beginning of the movie. And it just shows you how dark this series really is. And once again, another beautiful, beautiful movie that makes you think. And also, actually, there is something I do want to say. And I keep thinking of things I actually do want to talk about. The name title, The Garden of Sinners. I now understand the meaning behind the name. The Garden of Sinners, obviously, if you think about it long enough, you think that the Garden of Sinners, that can be, represented as Eden. The first holy land that God made in the Bible. And if you think about it, where did the sins originate? From that land. Now, we gotta look at this, okay, as a different type of standpoint, okay? This is my outlook and viewpoint. I don't know exactly if this is exactly what the movie title means or the series in general, but this is my outlook on the movie itself. Shiki and Fujino, they are flawed. They know they are flawed. They admit this. And they also know they sin. They are sinners. They even state that. And then when you think about the title Garden of Sinners, they gotta question, where did the sin really start? Like, Kokuto in this movie, with his characterization, he actually says, or he doesn't say, you can actually tell by his demeanor and personality and the way he carries his character in this movie, he's conflicted. Because when he looks at Fujino, he actually thinks of Shiki herself. Because Fujino is very similar to Shiki, as I already stated earlier on the review. And you can clearly see the conflicting thoughts going on in Kokuto's mind in this movie. And as you look at it at a different standpoint, where did the original sin start? Did it start with the rape at the beginning of this movie? Did it start at the murders, when Fujino started killing people? Did it start when her family forced a treatment on top of Fujino to where she could no longer feel pain? Did it start from when she was born? And that, my fellow Chibits, is the true meaning of this series, in my opinion. The true Garden of Sinners, the true meaning of that title is the real sin was because they were born. So, that is just my different outlook on this movie. Hopefully you all enjoyed that. I love you all so much. You have a wonderful day, or night, wherever you live. And stay tuned. I will try to watch the fourth movie as soon as I can. I'm not going to have any estimates when I will have a reviewer to watch it. But I will watch movie 4 because this series has gotten a lot of attention from me. I'm loving the, freaking storytelling and characterization. So tell me your thoughts. I love you all so much. You have a wonderful day or not, wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.